Fall Out Boy have always prided themselves on giving tight, energetic live performances, and since day one have toured on a seemingly constant basis. Chicago radio station Q101 has followed the band's progress since their early days, inviting them in to play live on many occasions and witnessing their dramatic rise to stardom.
We used to have a morning show here that was a syndicated show around America, and we would do opening day broadcasts out at Wrigley Field. And that was, I think, one of the first times they played on the Man Cow show. This is like years ago. They're setting up their own stuff, and like you know, it's a very small, scaled down thing, and no one knew who they were, you know. And they would play events for us, you know. And I always said, I mean, you know, and everybody likes to say this, but I always tell people, just watch, you know, one day, and you know, sure enough, and then. Yeah, I mean, they would come up here and they would do different sets for us. We always have live bands in, and this room had them a number of times play live. It's gotten to be definitely more of a chore now to get them up here, because they have people and their people have people, and they're a great case of that, like where, you know, you can call the guys and have a normal conversation, but then when it comes time to getting work done, where they want to do it and we want to do it, everybody gets in the middle and messes it up. Labels and managers and everything. So the guys themselves are the best. Yeah.
The first time we had them in was probably 2 or 3 years ago. We used to do a feature where a local band would come and perform live every Friday on our afternoon show. And so Fall Out Boy came in. They did a couple songs live in studio. They did all plugged in and everything. They did a cover of Joy Division's Love Will Tear Us Apart, and then after that we did an interview with them that ran on Local 101 a couple days later. And at that time they weren't on, you know, a major label. They hadn't hit as big as they had. From the time that I first heard of them until now, just on a strictly music, you know, professional level, they've advanced a lot. You know, I mean, there's a lot of bands doing the punk thing in Chicago and nationally. And really, you know, musically and the personalities that they exude through the music and on and off stage, they're one of the better pop punk bands in the city and in the country right now, you know, and obviously what they're doing reflects that and the level of success they're having. At the end of the day, with the independent releases and kind of the original grassroots fan base, they've proved that they had the songwriting hook, so they're not like this totally pre-manufactured pop group. They did it, you know, independently, and now they're doing it on a national level. I'm not going to claim like I know them very well personally. I've interviewed them a couple times, but I ran into Pete at a show a couple months ago. Just low-key guy, totally cool, no ego talking to him, just hanging out, you know? And at the end of the day, especially in a place like Chicago, it might be different in Hollywood, but in a place like Chicago, when you're still going to punk shows, that's kind of all you can do, you know. So that's still there.
There's a lot of different places where you could draw an influence in terms of just your attitude, the fact that, you know, you stay grounded, which is where I think they're very humble and down to earth, and none of this stuff has really made them that different of people. I mean, it's ridiculous to say that success doesn't change you, because you change as a person over time. But I think that coming up through Chicago, coming up through that hardcore scene, and being from, I don't know, the Midwest, you know, here in the United States, it has an effect on you that is very deep and long lasting.
With the level of fame they have achieved, there are countless stories and anecdotes about Fall Out Boy's backstage antics. So what are the boys really like? We asked the guys who knew them before they were famous to explain how the band's dynamic works, to let us in on the real personalities behind the public personas.
If I were to look at the band, I would say that Pete would be the boss.
I just remember Pete once was the guy that was a total dick, hit everybody, jumped on people. Everyone was kind of scared of him, actually. He was a little skinny guy with dreadlocks and terrorized everybody at the shows.
He stepped on a few toes and things like that.
He wore the clothing. He wore the uniform of a punk. He had real big hair, tight shirts, huge pants, and I think he wanted it so badly, but at the same time, the other thing about him is he was really subtle with everything. He didn't come out and say it to people. He wasn't obvious about it. As I said before, he liked to drive around in his mom's Toyota van real fast.
Pete Wentz, he's always kind of been the troublemaker.
I can claim that I once had my girl get kicked in the face by Pete Wentz on a date. You know, you've ever been to a hardcore show, you know that there's going to be a lot of kicking and flailing of arms and punching, that sort of thing. And she's like, oh yeah, that's not a problem. So she goes up there, and Pete totally, like, he was doing a bunch of like spin kicks or drop kicks or something, kicked her right in the head, and she comes back to me and she's, you know, she's all upset and mad and crying. She's like, that guy, such a jerk. He, you know, well, she used some other words other than jerk, but you know, that guy kicked me in the face. I'm gonna go tell him, you know, what's what after the show, this and that. And I'm like, look, I told you, don't go up to the front of the stage because you're gonna get kicked because it's a hardcore show. And yeah, so we sat there and argued. I almost left her in Chicago.
Apparently, Pete came back to Chicago to visit and got really drunk and punched a cop and went to jail or something. I don't know if you guys know about this.
He's always in the middle of something, doing something fun. He's a good guy too. I like him. Miss him.
I know it sounds weird, but he was a sweetie. And at the same time, he was real dark.
Pete's passion for music is undoubtedly what makes him the driving force behind Fall Out Boy, resulting in an intriguing dynamic with singer Patrick Stump. Whilst Patrick would traditionally be expected to occupy the frontman role, it is in fact Pete who tends to act as the so-called face of Fall Out Boy.
I think all bands like fall back on usually like one person that really is like just totally goal-minded. And just like any business, you know what I mean? There could be a lot of people that are peers that work together, but there's usually that one person that has like the ultimate vision, and therefore they become the leader. And it doesn't make anybody any better than the other people. It's just like they're the one with the vision. So I guess that he would just fall into that.
I would say that was probably planned, to have Pete take the lead on that sort of thing. Maybe Patrick's personality doesn't lend him to wanting to be, you know, up in the spotlight with the mic in his face all the time.
Usually that kind of breaks all tradition, that Pete's kind of the front man without actually being the front man. He's kind of the mastermind. I think he's really got a mind for the business. I think he knows how to work things to his advantage, and it seems like he's playing the game well. He must be if he's got his band this far. But yeah, I think Pete's probably pulling most of the strings, and everybody else is kind of enjoying the ride and probably enjoying being on the road all the time. That's got to be quite a life.
I think in the indie punk hardcore music scene, that's relatively common. It seems like there's the group mentality where, as far as the band is concerned, everyone plays their role. As far as playing and performing the music, everyone has a role to play. And it's funny because it seems like in more traditional rock, the singer is the front man and the representative of the band. But I think that's less common in indie punk and hardcore stuff. So in that sense, I think it makes sense to me.
Like, I remember Pete, like, when he told me about Patrick, I mean, like, this kid can sing and telling me all about him. And Patrick, he was real cool, and he was all about it. And he was like a real humble kid and real quiet and shy, which is kind of funny to be, you know, a singer in that big of a band. But I think that happens quite often, to be shy. But yeah, he was just real shy and a young kid and just massively talented, a really good singer. It's cool because outside of their influences being like Green Day, Descendants, Saves the Day, Blink-182 at the time or whatever, New Found Glory, all that kind of stuff, one thing that separated them, I think, would be the way that Patrick sang, and that he didn't just have some like kind of okay nasally voice. It wasn't like NoFX. It wasn't like, you know, it wasn't like Green Day. I mean, like, all those people could sing, but it's like he had soul. You know, he had a characteristic to me that's beyond just pop punk music. I mean, you're classified by a genre, but at the same time, it becomes just a part of pop culture or whatever. So pop, rock, whatever that would be. But I mean, his voice has soul, and that's something that a lot of those cats don't have. He can sing. Andy, I always respected him as a drummer, and he respected me, so we always shared that common bond, which was really cool. So he was always a super solid, like, rock drummer, and there was things about his style that I always liked. And then I had more of a jazz influence, so there's stuff about my style that